Welcome to Opening Soon, a podcast where we interview retail founders about how they started and run their brick and mortar businesses. I'm your host, Alan Lee. I run Signs and Mirrors, where we make beautiful signs and furniture for retail stores. I also help run Photolab, a self-portrait studio with locations in New York City and Houston. Ireland, thanks so much for joining the Opening Soon podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to dive into your story and what you've built with New York Memento. But before we get started, would love to just hear a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Just to give you some background on me and where I'm from. So, context going way back, I grew up in a small town in southern Oklahoma, so a little bit different than New York City. And from there, went to University of Oklahoma, so stayed in the state. And from there, I moved to New York shortly after graduation. That's another story for another day, but with, no apartment and nowhere to go. But I was pretty determined to, shake it up and, forge that path for myself. So been here for the past, 3.5 years now, and it's been incredible. As we kind of spoke about before, I jumped into like the big tech corporate world once I got here, and am now planning to leave that soon, but have had such an amazing experience working in a large tech company, and am excited to kind of take some of my knowledge and experience and translate that into Memento.
Awesome. So you came to New York in 2022, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. That is just, I think I came back end of 2022 as well. That was sort of like COVID was ending-ish and things were opening up a little bit. How did it feel when you got here?
Yeah, it was interesting. Like I said, I didn't really have an apartment, and not for lack of trying at all. I was, stalking Street Easy like most New Yorkers do, but
Same.
from afar for months. And I was just desperate. I was like, I will take anything. And it was so challenging to even find a spot, because this was like the era of people like waiting outside in lines just to like view a like closet basically. And I was, half a, the country away. And so I was just
Sure.
like begging any broker to like consider me for an application. Like,
Yep.
hey, I'm a 22-year-old fresh out of college with,
Yeah.
a moderate credit score and no income. Could you let me have an apartment? And so that was a struggle, but I knew like once I got here that I could hopefully figure something out. And long story short, finally secured an apartment, which ended up being such a great place for like my first 2 years here.
Cool.
But the city itself, I feel like maybe it was for the best. Some might say that it was like a slower pace of New York during that time. I think it was like we were coming out of that post-COVID era, so I don't know if it was like the true, like authentic, pre-COVID
Sure.
New York. But for me, I immediately just like fell in love with it, and just the energy, I could still feel it all around me, and it was great. And I think maybe that slower entrance was probably good for me in retrospect, coming from never really experiencing that, but slowly growing into it. And I have just grown to like love the city and all of the people and opportunities that it brings.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear. And tell me a little bit more about the tech job. What do you do there? You've worked there for the past 2 years, and what's inspired you to make the leap to doing New York Memento for full time?
Yeah, of course. So kind of, I feel like, to give a bit more context, like going back, way back to like kind of what inspired me to start Memento, and what kind of, urged me to exit the corporate kind of ladder relatively early in my career, is giving some context way back, is I've always been a very entrepreneurial kid, or like was as a child.
Yeah.
And like, for example, I used to like go door to door selling like branded organic dog cookies to anyone who would like open their door. And this was like in 2008. So,
Did you
very,
say dog cookies?
yeah. So I was like, I don't know what my 8-year-old brain, how even it came up with this idea, because this was like pre, doggy boutique daycare or like Fresh Pet or any of those type of things. But I lived in like a very, I guess, pet prevalent neighborhood. And I was into baking and I loved animals. So I was like, what if I made this like branded organic dog treat? I don't know if the dogs would even eat them, but
Wow.
I would go like door to door selling them. But just because I found it fun and creative and, a little business savvy. And I say this all in retrospect because, of course, I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was just having fun. But
Sure. Modern day
yeah,
lemonade stand.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I say that because, as I went through the education system and went into college, that part of me, I feel like I kind of was just like neglected and was like, oh, that was just like something I did as a kid. And was kind of funneled into the more traditional job pursuit of go be like a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, or something like stable. And I definitely, toiled with all of those possibilities and never really found something that clicked. And eventually kind of landed on pursuing like a degree in marketing and consumer behavior. And that's when I was like, oh, there's like something here. And I had like that spark again that kind of like reignited that kind of childlike passion in me. And so after that, I was like, okay, there's something here, but I don't really know what to turn it into. But my, best guess at the time was get in the right rooms, get in the environment where there's more, opportunity, possibilities. So that's what led me to New York. And to kind of circle back to your original question of working in big tech and like what I was doing, primarily working in digital strategy and advertising. Had the privilege to work with some of the top 50 largest consumer brands in the world, which is an incredible thing to have had exposure to,
Nice.
especially earliest in my career. And that was super exciting and really kind of filled that like innovative, ideative side of me. And getting to like observe and see that in real time in kind of parallel to the like acceleration of how fast digital marketing and AI and automation was kind of going like right before our eyes. Like it was incredible. But then I think there was part of me that was always like, okay, we're on this upward trajectory of kind of optimization and, curation when it comes to this like digital first landscape. But like,
Yep.
what's the other end of that? Like, where's the balance here? And I think kind of tying into my story of moving to New York, it's such a fast-paced place. And, it's like you come in here and you're going from like day one. And that's kind of how I was feeling on the screens or in the digital world too.
Yep.
And I'm like, where is this balance? Who's going to like pull back and, kind of bring the humanity back to all of this? And so that always lingered in my mind. And
It's a very existential question.
it is an existential question, and it's like very vague. And
Yeah.
I feel like our generation, or maybe probably most people feel that is,
Yes, for sure.
we are on this hamster wheel of going so fast, and whether you're a digitally native or adaptive person, like it's all consuming at all times. But there's part of us that's just human and craves that tangible in-person connection that seems to be a bit more of like a fleeting luxury these days than like a normal occurrence.
Yes.
And so, as I was saying, like kind of observing and seeing how quickly like technology and AI is evolving, it's super exciting. And then again, I'm like, wait, where's the humanity? Where's the community? Like we're still missing something here. And so I think that's really where the idea and like the ethos for Memento came from, was, creating a space to like allow people even just 3 minutes of their day, just to kind of like step away from a screen, like have a human connection, whether it be with themselves or with another person or a group of people, and just be present, like be in the moment, have something tangible to hold on to when you leave, and go back into the rat race of it all. But having those moments of stillness and just kind of bringing that humanity back to it is kind of
Yeah.
where it stemmed from. And it's kind of a stretch when you're like, oh, it's a photo booth, but truly that's like where the inspiration started and kind of what it's evolved into now.
And when did you have this initial idea, or these existential thoughts? Like, was it the first day on the job, a year in, and then when did you actually start Memento?
Yeah, great question. I don't know if there was like a specific moment where I was like, click, realize in the sense of the kind of human connection piece, because honestly, I feel like the first 24 years of my life, I was just like on a treadmill, like sprinting. And I love that. Like, that's definitely my energy. Like, I'm a very go, go, go person and love to be busy and action oriented and all of those things. And, it was just like, what's the next goal? What's the next goal? What's the next goal? And I would say like my big tech job that I'm currently in was my, top of the mountain for a long time. And once I achieved that, I was like, okay, now what? And so I think that allowed me the space to go back to just being in a learning curiosity mindset and take advantage of, my physical, world that I live in the city and just like the people and the connections and all of those things.
Yeah.
And I've always, like I kind of mentioned in the beginning, had like a very entrepreneurial part of me, and like embarrassingly, like in my free time, I've always just like made like pitch decks or like just research things, and like I've had past ideas that I never executed on. And so it's always been, that's like a part of my brain that's kind of always on, I guess.
Yeah.
And kind of mixing with, just the evolution of kind of growing up and all of the things that occur through life. And I came up with the idea in October of 2024, so
Okay.
a little over a year ago. And that's when it kind of hit me. And it was one of those first ideas that hit me. And I was like, I think I could actually execute on this. I think I can actually do this. And I can see vaguely like how I would get there. And that was kind of the start of the actual build out itself.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So October 2024, you're, thinking of bringing a space together for people to step outside of the digital realm, be more physical and in person. What's next? How do you go about creating the business plan, finding the space, talking to brokers? I know you had trouble with even finding the apartment, and then commercial real estate's a whole nother beast. So walk me through the next steps.
Yeah, totally. That was a very interesting moment. I don't know what possessed me in October of 2024, if there was a full moon or what gave me the confidence to just like full send and do it. But
Sure.
I did. I came up with the idea and I was like, okay, like let's just like look. Like, I've never looked at commercial real estate. And like you said, haven't had the best or easiest experience with real estate in general in the city before. And within like my first search, I stumbled upon this space, which is now where Memento is.
Really? Your
Yes.
first search? That's incredible.
I think maybe it was the, real estate gods like thanking me for my patience in the beginning. I don't know, but it definitely was very lucky. And I was like, no way.
Did you use like a LoopNet or Cruxy or like a broker? How did you even find it?
Yes, I found them on LoopNet just through like a listing, and
Cool.
reached out to the broker, and he was great. And within like that first week, I went over and looked at the space in person, and that's kind of where it all began.
That's awesome. And this space is super unique. So I'd love for you to describe to the audience a bit what it actually is, where it is, how big it is.
Yeah, for sure. So it's very unique. So when I found this space, I was like, oh, this is the spot. And I think every other person in the world would have been like, what do you mean? It's literally a tiny empty shell of nothing,
Okay.
in the shape of a triangle. And there was no walls, no infrastructure. It was just an empty nothingness. And it's 19 square feet.
19 square feet.
19 square feet in the shape of a triangle.
Okay.
With just like a pole in the middle and no walls. There's just like garage gates that lift it up. And I was like, this is it. And I'm sure people were like, what do you mean? And it really was the location for me. It's on 7th Avenue and West 10th Street in the West Village, which is such a beautiful area, and one holds such like special meaning to me. but also is just like such a cultural touch point for downtown Manhattan and has so much liveliness to the neighborhood. So I was like, this is the spot. Like nothing's gonna beat this or rival this. So
Super high energy area.
super high energy, yeah. And that's really what motivated me to be like, if it's not this space, I can't imagine, you know, what else will pop up. And not to say there wouldn't have been, but it was something about it just felt right in my gut. So that's really
Yeah.
when we jump into it before knowing a single thing about how to even really turn on a camera, much less, you know, contracting or anything in that realm. But it was kind of a, okay, like we're going to trust the gut and go for it.
Yeah. One of our customers for Signs and Mirrors is Fellini Coffee,
Oh, yes, they're across the street.
which is across the street, which reminds me of Memento because their first location was also a tiny triangle, which is not much bigger than probably 20 square feet as well.
Yeah,
But
which is
they've
so
since
impressive.
yeah, they've since expanded to I think 4 or 5 locations throughout the city, and they're doing really well. So
Yeah, that's a great point. I think they definitely were part of my belief, I guess, that I could make it happen, knowing like, okay, Fellini has created a corner coffee shop, which arguably is much more complex than a photo booth in many ways because you're dealing with heating and cooling and
yep.
you know, perishable goods. And I was like, okay, if they can do it, I can figure it out. So that's a really good tie in there, and they're neighbors. So
Yeah, always you can get a good Americano or espresso, whenever you
absolutely.
need. Okay, so the space is 19 square feet. It's in the form of a triangle. Um, Talk to me about how you thought about renovations, who did the design, the architecture, how
Yeah.
much is rent, what are all those details?
Yeah, for sure. So after I kind of was like, all right, here we go, signed the dotted line, I was like, well, better figure out how to bring it to life because there's nothing here. And I don't have a history or like education in like design or architecture or any of that. But one thing I can do is I'm pretty savvy with Canva, which I know is controversial in many ways to like other design platforms.
Amazing
But
tool.
it's the beginner friendly, you know, and I was like, I can make my way around. So that's genuinely how I created the blueprints, was on like a whiteboard in Canva, and to the best of my ability using the dimensions and, you know, from what I could learn on the internet, and
Yeah.
began reaching out to contractors just online, just
Wow.
throwing it out there. I had no connections. I didn't know. At first I was like, maybe I could do it myself, and then quickly realized, you know, there's things that you have strong capabilities in, and areas that you're weak, you just gotta hire the best. And I also got very lucky that I found a contractor who saw the vision and shockingly really believed in it and thought it was a really cool idea and was willing to kind of take on this quirky space and execute on it based on my, you know, very amateur sketches that I provided him. And so that was a really key relationship from the beginning that
Nice.
I think was like a very, you know, foundational pillar of being able to even bring this to life. That was interesting. And then from there, like you mentioned, design and the pitch deck and branding, that was all just nights and weekends of digging in and learning, and lots of searching and scouring Pinterest for inspiration, and doing a lot of master classes and lots of YouTube and podcast, and slowly but surely just chipping away at it. And
Well,
went from
kudos
there
because
because,
I've seen your branding deck and it looks amazing.
oh, thank you so much. I appreciate
I
it.
thought I thought it was I honestly thought it was professionally done.
Oh my gosh, that's so kind. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was definitely, you know, I had a budget from the beginning of, okay, I'm signing this contract. I am clearly going to have to, you know, have people help me build this out. And I was working with finite funds at that point. So I was like, if I even have 50% of the way there, like it's going to have to be good enough for now. And we can, you know, refine and iterate as, you know, step by step. So that's really what I did. And I know you mentioned rent, which is a funny topic because you and everyone on TikTok seems to be really curious about that as well, which I find hilarious. And I'm very open and transparent about it because it is an absurd number for 19 square feet. It's about $47.50 a month,
Oh, wow.
which is probably, which was significantly more than my own personal apartment. But again, I think that really kind of ties back into like I had such a strong vision for what
Yeah.
this was and like what it could be that that didn't even scare me,
Yeah.
even though to, anyone walking the street, that's a crazy number for a closet, which it definitely is. But I saw the value and the potential in it. So it didn't scare me away too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I think whenever anyone outside of New York hears about
Oh, yeah.
apartment rents or commercial rents, they're just like, I'd I'd get a four-bedroom house for that price of a studio or like a one bed, but
Exactly.
it's a different place, and especially in the area that you're in West Village, it's
100%.
probably one of the most sought after zip codes in New York, compared to like
Absolutely.
outside of Soho or maybe Fifth Ave or something. So,
Totally.
very, very popular spot. Okay. So you found a great contractor, you did the designs yourself. How did you get the photo booth? Is it an analog photo booth, or describe like the type?
Yeah, so again, going into this, I didn't know a ton about photo booths or photography in general, just aside from the basics. So that was one of the paths I had to kind of navigate and do some research on. And initially went down the rabbit hole of doing analog film and quickly realized that the maintenance and just the technical and specificity and just knowledge you have to have around that is almost a full-time job in itself. And
Very
I
complex.
very much commend every single person or photo booth that runs those because they're very challenging. And so also I think part of the reason that I kind of put that option on the side and went more towards a digital route was that I wanted it to be customizable and iterative. I wanted the templates and the prints themselves and the experience to evolve over time and not be, so fixed and a one and done. I wanted one for the consumer to be able to come back, every few months and have a unique moment and a unique memory and
Yeah.
unique memento to hold on to, not the same one necessarily every time. And then also a longer term vision was to have like brand partnerships. So to really kind of tie it all back to my experience working with brands and advertising, how can they really bring their that human connection back and that community piece. And so being able to, rebrand the photo strips with like their logos or their
Yeah.
coloring or whatever they prefer. Same with the UI. And so that's what got me really excited about the digital piece of it and started really going down that rabbit hole and pretty just putting multiple elements and pieces together to kind of give it that vintage analog feel,
Yeah.
but still having the kind of control for like that customization.
Nice. And talk to me a little bit about how you thought about the business model, because I know you mentioned you wanted to do partnerships with brands, and then obviously it's also a photo booth, so you have customers walking down the street. How did you think about that?
Yeah, of course. And I think I definitely took it in stride, but I think there's two key buckets that I saw as kind of the initial foundation of what I wanted to execute on. The first one, and I would say our primary right now, is just, again, going back to that day-to-day consumer, creating a space for a unique moment in time to kind of be still, be present, and just be in the moment and have that physical keepsake to take along with them and human connection. And that's absolutely like bread and butter day to day, like what I strive to bring to the community and continue to improve all the time. And from there, building out onto the more brand partnership bucket, we'll call it. Once, kind of was like, I need to get a sense of like, what is the foot traffic like what are we organically bringing in, what are consumers saying, what is the feedback, things like that, and ensuring that it's a very well-oiled machine. And then pivoting into the more brand partnership side, because I kind of realized quickly, as you probably are familiar in New York, like pop-ups or like pop-up culture is definitely a thing. And
Huge.
for I think good reason. Any pop-up that I've like stumbled upon or been to or intentionally gone to, I feel like those are the brands that stick out in my head as like I have some sense of loyalty to them. Whereas more like digitally native brands, I don't necessarily feel that. Not that I don't buy from them, I do. But it's just a different sense of connection and creating a space where brands that I love can, you know, bring that community, human-centric aspect back, even if they're only, you know, reaching 1,000 people in that one, you know, few-hour pop-up. That's 1,000 people that are going to have their brand logo front and center on their fridge because that's memorable to them and they made them feel good in that moment.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really exciting and cool to kind of execute on. But I don't think you can't have one without the other. And I think that the foundational element of just creating like the space and like the ethos around Memento and like the culture is fundamental, and then building from there is really exciting, and have had some exciting brand partnerships over the past month. In October, did one with Rent the Runway, which went really well.
Wow.
I would say that was our first big one, and it was such an incredible experience, so much fun. We did like a little partnership with Cafe Arone, which is a local coffee shop in the area, and they
Nice.
Partnered with us and did some co-branded like merchandise and coffee and like a cart, and it was a really great like community building experience, and really enjoyed that and learned a lot, and excited for, you know, future ones down the line.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see and dive into how things are going. But I just would love to wrap up. So you had the idea October 2024. When did you complete sort of build out construction, the photo booth? How long did it take? And you know, how much was the all-in investment for getting it up and running?
That's a great question. So October 2024, found the space. I was like, let's go. And I was like, we're going to opening day is going to be on New Year's Eve. I was like, sure, I can totally do this in 6 weeks.
Wow.
Sure, for sure, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, can do anything but my mind too. How iconic, a New Year's Eve opening. Just to spoil the plot, we opened in June. Yes.
In June. Oh my gosh.
In June 1st. That was opening day officially. And there was multiple reasons for the delays.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say foundationally, we're working with a tiny space that is a very unique shape with uneven floors, with no walls, and quite literally nothing there. There was one wall on the interior side, and then on the outside there was nothing.
Wow.
And so on top of how do we get the tech equipment, because this isn't a photo booth that you just buy off the shelf. Like every single piece in here is custom built. The camera, the tablet, the print, like all of it's separate and integrated into a whole. How do I keep all that secure and aesthetic while, you know, fitting it all in this tiny space? So there was a lot of logistics that went there. And then also the winter weather last year really impacted it. It's on this really lovely space, or this corner, that the wind really tends to like tunnel there. So there were many days where we were like, okay, today's the day we're putting the wall up, today's the day we're putting the wall up, and it would create like this wind tunnel in the space. So quite literally could not put a wall up until about March. And
people don't think about as in their business plan. They don't realize the wind tunnel prevents you from doing things.
Yeah, that was definitely not on the listing for the space.
Yes.
Maybe in the future, but it's one of those things where like you just really have to be resilient and you know, thrive in like, the ambiguous space of it all, and just be adaptive and figure it out like every single day. And that's what it was for quite literally 7 months straight, was just figuring it out. I don't think anything from the original plan was exactly how it turned out, but all for the best. So yeah, it was a very long 7 months. There was definitely moments where I wasn't sure if it was ever gonna come to life, but had to keep the vision.
Were you paying rent throughout this entire time as well?
I was.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was paying that hefty rent with you know, no income from the source for that long, and it was scary, and it was a lot of money to be putting up, and then on top of, buying the equipment and paying the contractors and technology and fees and all the things, was a lot. But going into it back in October, when I was like making the decision to even take the leap and do it, was, okay, it's 12 months of this is going to be this amount of money.
Yep.
That's exactly how much I have in my savings account right now.
Mm.
And I was like, am I willing to lose it all? And I had to ask myself, like, I have to be willing to lose all of it. And I was like, yes, because it's worth every penny to go through the experience. Because I know either if this is the thing or whatever is next, like, I want to own a business, I want to be an entrepreneur, and this is going to essentially be an accelerated real life MBA in many ways. And, kind of the opportunity cost there was worth it to me, even if at the end of the day it was not successful and I started back at zero. I've learned so much throughout the process, and can attest that even if today our doors weren't open, I would still do it again, just through all the learnings that I've had personally and professionally and in the entrepreneurial space. So luckily that did not happen. We have since broken even and then some, which is super exciting to see that, the vision is come to life and it's resonating. So super excited to keep building on it.
Wow, that's really admirable. Literally willing to go back to zero for your business and take that leap is not easy, which is why business is hard, and nothing's guaranteed. It's why it takes a certain type of individual to start their own business and go from 0 to 1. But thank you for sharing that.
Great book, by the way. Love that.
Yeah, also a great book. Okay, well, you finally got it open in June, into the warm summer New York months, which is perfect in West Village. Tell me how the reception is. How did you get the word out? How many people are stopping by to take photos on a weekly or monthly basis?
Yeah, absolutely. From the day that we opened, I think it really came to the point where, like I said, it was a long 7 months. I was like, I just want the doors open. I don't have any dog left in me to go out there and I just need to take a minute. I need to take a beat. Just give me a day to not, be running 100 miles an hour. And I was also curious to see what happens if I just don't do any marketing? I don't really push the word out there. I just organically see what comes, because it is a high traffic area, and someone's bound to stumble in there at some point. And honestly, what happened next blew my mind. It was so incredible, the amount of just organic content that was generated from people on Instagram and TikTok, and just sharing their experience and creating these really high quality reels and short form videos and Instagram stories, and just seeing it all come to life. I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening, and I feel like I'm not doing anything. Of course, there was a lot of work that went on the back end, but at that point I was like, I got to get some perspective here. And that's really kind of what started that second, spark of wow, it's actually coming to life. And from there, I think on we'll say marketing side of things and spreading the word, I've really just kind of let it into the hands of the consumer, of the community, of people who are naturally inclined to want to share.
Yes.
And that's for many reasons. For one, I think it's very authentic. And, if they're willingly just going and posting about it, it's clearly a genuine connection.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, from a very honest POV, is I also have been working a full-time job this whole time. And I just, I was like, there's got to be priorities. And that was one of the buckets that kind of had to go, because even day to day, there was still a lot to maintain, and also continuously iterating. When I opened those doors on June 1st, it was functioning, but it is a little cringy to look back on now, because I've since, which is I think a great thing, because I've since made so many improvements and gotten so much feedback, which I was kind of working in a silo for that whole time of not having really any feedback or knowing what people were going to like, what was going to land, what wasn't.
Yep.
I'm no, graphic designer, so continuously tweaking it over time, almost, multiple times a week, was a huge piece of those, I would say, first 3 months, honestly.
Yeah.
And, looking back, like I said, it's a little cringy and embarrassing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, whoever has that first photo, like, I'm sorry, it was not the best quality. Like, please come back. I will give you a free session, I promise. Sure. But yeah, that was really kind of those first few months. And I mean, I still continue to do that and iterate daily. And I'm really excited for this next chapter where I have so much more time to give into it and execute on so many of the ideas that I've had to push to the back burner for a little bit, just out of sheer, balancing time and energy. So excited for what's to come and, kind of hit on those spots that I've, witnessed throughout the past 5 months of being open.
Mm-hmm. I think one really interesting thing to touch upon there is the rent that you pay and the traffic that comes through that's embedded into your rent. Say if you were in like a remote area and paying like $1,000 or $2,000, you'd still have to spend a few $1,000s on marketing just to get people to your space. So it's like there's like embedded marketing costs that you're saving. So like people see the headline number on rent and they're like, oh my God, that's so much money. But then, how much money are you going to have to spend on Facebook and Google ads to get people to your space?
That's so true.
And
that's
it's just, it's something that I think is I don't know, people generally don't think of, and there's a reason why, popular areas are more rent because, there's thousands of really high quality or tens of thousands of really high quality people passing by every day.
No, 100%. And that's so true about New York, kind of going back to our initial conversation of, people outside of the city just don't understand why it's so expensive. And I, even when I was, making $0 in my first job here, I called it the happiness tax because I feel like, I was like, but you don't understand. It's like the opportunities that are around you, the energy, the people, like that's what you're paying for. Like that's what those extra few $1,000s a month are. And then for business, like you were saying, like it's like that opportunity tax in a way. Like there's a lot of, hidden benefits to being here, and the eyes and just the things that you would have never guessed the people are going to walk into your space can completely change your business all for the better. So really love that point. It's very true.
Awesome. And then are you able to share roughly like how many people are coming on like a weekly basis or monthly basis of people taking photos?
Yeah, I mean, so over the past 5 months, very gladly, it's been quite consistent, which in a great way, over like turbulent weather, of course, whatever, if it's a stormy, windy, rainy day, I'm not going to expect, much traffic, but if it's a lucky, gorgeous, fall day in October and, a crisp 65 and sunny, it's a much better day. And those first few months, I was kind of shocked by the volume, like in a good way, like it was very high, and have, consistently seen those numbers hit month over month, which is pretty reassuring. And I would say the first half of us being open, so we'll say the first 2.5 months, we were averaging about 120 on like per day on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So total, that's, close to 350, 400 people. And then weekdays, again, weather dependent, holiday dependent, we'll give it anywhere from like 20 people a day to like 60. Really depends. Now those numbers are definitely higher, typically on weekends. Like last weekend, I think, was our biggest Saturday ever with over 300 people.
300 people?
Yeah, which was, I was shocked. I woke up the next day and I looked and I was like, what happened last night? And granted, it was like one of those perfect, crisp, beautiful October days, or I guess November. But it was, that was incredible. So really manifesting more, weekends and days like that.
That's so great. Congrats.
Starting to put systems in place to anticipate that volume. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And how much is a photo strip, or how much does it cost?
Yeah. So there's, I guess you could say 3 options, but you have the option when you start your session if you want a print, and you can pick how many you want a digital download, which just gets sent to your email if you want it more for like sharing or texting or things like that. Again, kind of tying that social media, bringing the social back to our media landscape. I think it's nice to have that option, or you can get both. It's 1111, which kind of ties into angel numbers and kind
I
of.
like it.
I felt very resonant to me and to like the ethos of the brand. So 1111 for a physical and 777 for a digital download. And I've gotten a little pushback here and there on the price, but you also get 2 strips per session. So really it's around like $5 and some change per strip. So yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, you close to, you probably almost made back your rent on that one Saturday, last month, which is great. So, the one thing about New York is everything's more expensive, but people are also willing to spend more.
Exactly.
By virtue of being here.
Of course.
That's so great. And then I know that you said you did the partnership with Rent the Runway, and you're moving into sort of the brand side as well. Are those organic, or did you reach out to them? And what's your plan for the brand partnerships?
Yeah, so out of a miracle, I guess, that was organic. One of the, community directors, one of their friends had stumbled into the booth, and I think I had some business cards in there. And
Nice.
had texted her and was like, this is such a cute spot, like you should look into this. And mind you, I definitely did have the like language and like the process on my website for brand partnerships, because I knew from day one, I was like, this is something I want to execute on. However, I don't have the bandwidth to reach out and commit to brands right now. Again, working a full-time job and still just trying to, keep the lights on.
Yeah.
But I kept it on my website just in case someone stumbled upon it, which they did. And they reached out, and it was such a great partnership. They really were aligned with exactly what I had kind of envisioned for this type of pop-up event. And I'm really grateful that they trusted me in doing this, especially with such a large company and being a small business and a 25-year-old. They really, it was I'm sure a huge, risk in some people's eyes, and I'm super grateful that they did. And I think it went really well.
Awesome. In Ireland, is there someone there at the booth to like, not for the event, but just generally on a day-to-day basis? Or how often do you have to like check up if there isn't someone there daily?
Yeah, so there's not on like a day-to-day basis. Obviously that's different for like events.
Yeah, for sure.
But in terms of like having like a security guard or someone there, like no, it's all like kind of self-service, but
Cool.
I do open it every day. Past schedule has been opening it before work. Future schedule will probably be honestly around the same time. And closing it at night. I do keep it open though on Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays now, because at first I was definitely hesitant, just because everyone was like, oh my gosh, people are going to break your equipment and sleep in there or do crazy things. But knock on wood, maybe I have too much faith in humanity, but really there hasn't been anything terribly crazy. Like, I have a few stories for off air, but nothing that was damaging. I didn't have to get the insurance policy out, and I'm like, I don't want to cut the fun off. Like, if someone wants to go at midnight, like just because I'm a grandma and go to bed at 8 doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to go. So I do leave it open on the weekends, but I typically do go over there at least twice a day. So definitely when I open, and right now I go like after work, just to like check in, make sure everything's okay, maybe clean up a little bit, just because it is like high foot traffic in such a small space. Like, I want it to feel like clean and have that aesthetic feel to it. So I would say average twice a day. On weekends, if I have the time, I definitely try to go over there more and just check in, make sure everything's okay. And we also have like security cameras, of course, inside and out, just for added measure.
Great. Well, I know that you're about to leave your job soon. Maybe briefly describe what your vision is for Memento over the next few years?
Yeah, of course. So I'll be honest, like anyone who knows me will tell you this. I'm definitely not a big like 5-year, 10-year plan person. I definitely am more about just like feeling based and like living authentically and kind of looking at the next 6 to 12 months. I think that's more realistic and digestible, and also things change so quickly, it's almost impossible to even predict more than a year out, at least for me.
Sure.
But really, in that time frame, I really strive to focus on and build out Memento like as its own like cultural brand. And I want it to be, recognizable, like not just as like, oh, it's just a photo booth, but like as when people hear the name or see the logo, like they recognize that as like this, movement that really is focused on bringing social connection like back to our generation and just day-to-day lives, in a different bucket as well. I definitely have some ideas on pursuing like a more product-based line down the road, thinking, photo frames like for your printed photos, journals, potentially even like keychains like for your photo strips, which I have a few like mock-ups now that are pretty cute. Would love to even evolve it into like a coffee table book with like stories of people who have like come through the booth and like inside and out. And that's kind of a different bucket in its own, but ultimately just tying it all back to those touch points and having it be, connecting with people on like a personal level and just cutting through the digital noise, and just having that genuine connection, impact, and having that connotation with Memento of not just being like a photo booth.
I really like the way you're thinking about it, because that's a really admirable vision and goal, first of all, of connecting people, and then second, it allows you to do it through a lot of different mediums. And you've started off with the photo booth, but as you're describing like these other products, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this makes so much sense, and it fits under this brand, and you have like maybe the physical and the e-commerce element and like other ones in the future. So that's really exciting.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Awesome. So I know we're running up a little bit on time, but one question I had for you is, looking back on your journey over, the last year, I think it's almost, just been over a year now of starting and thinking about Memento and knowing what you know now. Is there anything that you would have changed or done differently?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really don't feel like I have any, looking back, like regrets or mistakes, like in the traditional sense. Like, I truly think I did everything I could with the resources I had, with the knowledge I had, with what I had access to, and definitely maintain that like figure it out mindset and just learner's mentality throughout. Were there hiccups? Were there things I, could have done better? Absolutely. But just being like realistic, like I didn't know better at the time. And of course in the future won't do those things again. It's just learning throughout. So like from a practical standpoint, no regrets, no, huge mistakes that I'm like, oh, like wish I would have done that differently, because, you just iterate and you do it differently next time.
Yep.
But I think a big lesson I learned over the past year was just prioritizing myself too, because throughout that I'm giving 100% to my corporate job, 100% to Memento, and trying to give 100% to like all the people around me. And then at the end of the day, I'm exhausted and definitely hit a point where, my immune system was just in the trash. I was just so stressed out all the time and wasn't prioritizing like what started it all, which was like myself and my experience. And, I am every employee essentially, and that's really important. And I definitely realized that throughout the process, and have since, learned so much and put in so many like practices and like non-negotiables in my days and weeks to like ensure that like the foundation, like being myself, is strong, or else none of this is gonna, be fruitful at the end of the day.
That makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Well, Ireland, if people want to stay in touch and follow along, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow us on Instagram at New York Memento. That is the same for our website, newyorkmemento.com. For TikTok, personally, I am doing a blend of my personal account for New York Memento promotion, just to kind of blend that more, personal human element. So
Yeah.
handle is just Ireland McGill. And yeah, hope to have some more new faces in, and really enjoyed our conversation today.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time. And yeah, I still haven't made it out yet, but I don't live too far, and I'm excited
Amazing.
to get a post in.
Oh my gosh, well, let me know. Definitely send you a little promo code.
All right. Thanks, Ireland.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, feel free to visit openingsoonpodcast.com for all of our episodes online. If you run a retail store and need updated furniture or signage, please feel free to visit www.signsandmirrors.com. Lastly, if you have any feedback or like to be a guest on the show, email me at alan, ALAN, @signsandmirrors.com. I promise I'll respond. Thanks for listening.